story that you're telling me it's just shocking, but shouldn't be, right? We as a people globally have hidden a lot of these genocides, and America likes to look at other countries and blame them, but we haven't been angels ourselves.
That is the key, right? I don't find it so surprising that we might point our finger at other countries, at their failure. That seems to be a natural human reaction.
Yes.
It's the nature of our beast. What is striking to me is that America has been good enough to bury its skeletons. The country's narrative stands up so well that it appears we're sanctimonious.
Yes.
Welcome to Peter and Phil's Courageous Conversations, a podcast addressing race relations and social issues in hopes that you'll be inspired to do the same. Now, let's begin our conversation with your hosts, Dr. Peter Weinstein and Dr. Philip Nelson.
Dr. Nelson, it's been a while. Good long time no see. How's the world?
It was great since we didn't get a chance to see each other. How about that? I don't know how the world is doing. My world is fine. How's yours?
My world is busy and crazy, and thank you to Nationwide for adding busy and craziness to our days by supporting our podcast. We'll give you some more things to think about today.
Well, let's hope so anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had an election, and while we were talking, I just came to mind that there's also some movies that are coming out that are very documentary as well about issues. There's the movie about the murder of
Till.
Yes, Emmett Till.
Emmett Till.
The Emmett Till movie, and then the movie about my Uncle Harvey. No, he's not related to me. We have nothing to do with anything. But about the Harvey Weinstein issues. And I think it's great that some of these stories are getting big screen and then subsequent small screen exposure, because I think having discussions on these things will come as a result of those as well.
Yeah, my biggest concern is the latest statistics on moviegoers now that we're streaming so much. With the digital improvements in picture quality for televisions, and the streaming, and with COVID teaching us how to take advantage of that, there appears to be a diminished desire to go to the movies.
Sharon loves going to the movies, so we will frequently go to the movies as date night, or really date afternoon most of the time. But I think what we've also seen, and we've seen this forever, is that documentaries rarely sell as well as comic book heroes.
That's true.
And since literally between Netflix and Prime and Apple TV and HBO Max and all of the others, you have so many choices to get news-based movies. I think people are probably watching more of the documentaries at home than they are in the theater.
I know I would prefer to, because I can actually concentrate better. There's nobody in the audience to distract me but my wife. I can take notes if I choose. I can stop and reverse it if I choose, especially if it's a dense documentary.
Right.
I know that I prefer to watch documentaries or truth-based movies at home as a learning experience. Entertainment, I still enjoy going to the movies.
Absolutely. You don't want to get up and get angry at a movie because you disagree with the documentary. You can do that at home. But the popcorn at home just isn't the same as it is at the theater.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. But it's healthier.
Yes, there's less fat in it, less butter.
And the drinks are cheaper and taste better.
Yes.
And you don't have to drink a gallon of it to feel as if you got your money's worth.
And when you have to pause and go to the bathroom, you can pause and go to the bathroom and not miss anything.
Yes.
This is really courageous in our conversation, isn't it? Well, but it goes to a point of news sharing that we've talked about many times, and information sharing. I think more and more it's going to be important that we scrutinize the news and we keep an eye on things and we question the facts, and we just make sure that we continue to be learning. And I think that's part of what these documentaries do is they make sure that issues don't disappear. Issues that warrant ongoing discussion don't disappear.
I see it more of a format for history, an attempt to either expose the truth or remind us of the truth, or as you suggest, use it as so that the truth can be reemerged. I was watching a news clip the other day on Indian schools that they've had throughout the United States, where there was considerable abuse of the children there, and how thousands of children are believed to have been killed as a result of the experience.
Whoa, wait. These are schools for Native Americans
Yes.
that the students are going through some form of corporal punishment leading to their demise.
Not corporal punishment. It was postulated that in many cases there were heinous sexual
Oh,
abuse.
oh,
This happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
okay.
Apparently, Canada has provided funds in retribution because they also participated in these schools that occurred on reservations. And they showed a clip of a government official with 3 Indians standing around him. And I don't know a lot about this. I need to do more research on it. But they showed a clip, and this government officer was saying that these schools were intended to kill the Indian and save the man. And that,
Wait. Kill the Indian
yes,
and save the man. Like
yes,
the white man or the man?
no,
Okay.
the man within the Indian.
Oh, got it. So if you're not tough enough, you're
No, when I first heard it, I was confused too.
okay.
But then the follow-up statement was, our intent is to remove the savagery. I've got the other word he used, so now I'm paraphrasing.
Mhm.
But they did use the word savagery and tribal evil nature of the Indian, so that the man is left, the man survives,
Wow.
and thereby making the Indian an acceptable citizen.
Wow. Wow. I'm speechless because I've never heard of this before.
I had neither. Apparently, there were schools across the West on reservation, but they weren't run by Indians. They were run by the Indian agency of the government. And there were some very heinous practices that resulted in numerous deaths. They actually took children. The Catholic Church was involved in this, by the way. At least there were some Catholic-based premises, and they took preferably young males, and they interviewed a couple of the males that survived, and it was similar to the Holocaust to me. They took the kids away from their family. All of a sudden, they became government wards, and so the people who looked out for them was the government, or whoever the government appointed to run the schools. And they had full autonomy. And because of the view of the Indian at the time, who, by the way, was only protecting the lands that they hunted and farmed, but because they chose to protect their lands, they were viewed as savage and evil.
You know, we don't talk much as a country about the genocide of the Indian people, do we?
No, we don't. And I'm not sure either of us is knowledgeable enough to do that, but we should seek a guest to inform us.
That would be great because it's a topic that's a social issue that definitely warrants learning more about and helping others understand more about it as well. I mean, the story that you're telling me it's just shocking, but shouldn't be, right? We as a people globally have hidden a lot of these genocides, and America likes to look at other countries and blame them, but we haven't been angels ourselves.
That is the key, right? I don't find it so surprising that we might point our finger at other countries, at their failure. That seems to be a natural human reaction.
Yes.
It's the nature of our beast. What is striking to me is that America has been good enough to bury its skeletons, the country's narrative stands up so well that it appears we're sanctimonious.
Yes.
Most of our citizens buy it. Most of the world buys it, and they want to be a part of it, unless they're the victims of our real actions. There are people in the Middle East that hate us for either funding the way they're being treated or backing the oppressors that are causing strife and pain. And if they want to be here, it's not because they adore America. They're trying to get away from an intolerable situation. The migrants that are coming from South America, most of them are coming for a job.
Right.
But there's a large proportion of them that are coming just to live. And they do believe there's something better than a totalitarian government.
There are migrations throughout Africa, Asia, all of which are to find a better place, a better way, a better
Yes.
survival opportunity for their kids, for their families. And unfortunately, in many cases, the adult males are left behind and the families are left to fend for themselves as they try to escape to a better options. And I mean, I do know that as we continue to do construction around the country, that we find burial grounds. And if I'm not incorrect, there continue to be bodies found in Tulsa from the events when that whole area of Tulsa was burned down.
And bombed.
Yeah.
From an airplane.
Yeah. Yeah.
My point is, we have hidden those actions so well. And there's a risk in excavating it as well, because then we have to counter the argument from descendants of those who actually committed these atrocities. Their argument is, you want my children to be ashamed of their past. And therefore, I don't want this in the schools. America first. Well, I accept America with all of its atrocity. I still think that America has the best governmental platform. I do not necessarily believe that America's government has always been the best. I believe the constitution of the government is aspirational, and we have rarely lived up to that aspiration. And so I answer those critics that want to put their child's head in the sand instead of being regretful of past mistakes. Yes, I want them to be embarrassed. I'm not asking anybody to disavow an ancestor. I have relatives that were in jail too, many of them inappropriately. But I do have relatives who were appropriately penalized, and I'm not going to disavow them. It is better for society that we recognize where we went wrong.
So is recognizing it and admitting to it sufficient, or what's your take on reparations for damages done to prior generations?
I'm in favor of reparations for damages that have held back a culture.
Okay.
I'm in favor of reparations for a systematic, conspirational, government-involved action or sum of actions that resulted in the unfair retardation of progress for a culture. I was at an event this weekend with the Korean Veterinary Medical Association, and I received an award recognizing me for expressing appreciation for our college's attempt to provide open access for all Americans into veterinary medicine, and for the success we had in creating one of the most diverse student bodies in the nation. And I had an opportunity to address the group. And in doing so, I expressed my deep appreciation for the acknowledgement, but also explained that I had mixed feelings about even accepting, about being recognized for doing my job. That this was a recognition that I felt that I was saddened had to be made. That we're in a position where it was even thought you would make this type of a recognition. It wasn't a recognition that said I was a great dean. It was a recognition that said, thank you for allowing some of our children to come to Western.
Thank you for doing the right thing.
Thank you for doing the right thing, because we hadn't had that we hadn't felt human before. But it was also recognition that tended to smack of, you gave us a special favor when we didn't. I will stand by every decision for every person who was admitted to Western. It was a fair, unbiased process that did not play favors for any culture. And our goal was to try to create a class that would graduate and provide the greatest effect on American society. And one of the best ways you do that is to graduate a class that looks like American society, so that our graduates are likely to reintegrate into American society. But in my statements, I also mentioned that I was a poor Black boy from Mississippi. In my 17 years here in California, I've learned a lot. When I came here, it was only about how Blacks and whites fought each other, or didn't get along, or got along, or how we should be able to get along. And that's what I brought to the table. And so it was easy for me to accept Korean Americans would want the same thing. Chinese Americans would want the same thing. Hispanic Americans would want the same thing. So I had no problems accommodating that. What I was surprised at, though, was that our histories between our cultures are different in different regions. When the Watts riot occurred, I was in Mississippi. I was in Jackson. I saw it on the TV screen. And when I saw the businesses around Watts being burned, I didn't know most of them were Korean businesses. I thought, well, I shouldn't say most. I didn't know a lot of them were Korean businesses. I didn't understand why they would burn down their own businesses, African-American businesses. But I do remember seeing Korean owners with shotguns trying to protect their businesses. And I was unaware of the distrust that occurred as a result of those riots. And so I was immune and ignorant of how I was perceived when I went to my first KVSA meeting. I had no idea they didn't trust me. I had no idea that I wasn't supposed to trust them. And when I learned of the complexity of the relationship between the African American community and the Korean American community, I had to dwell on that for a while. I had to figure out my own stand there. And so, oddly enough, it was a lot like Uncle Tom in the black and white perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't Black enough for African Americans. My final position wasn't Black enough for African Americans and wasn't Korean enough for Korean Americans. Because it's not about African or Korean, it's about human race. And those are the comments I made to them. And I said, but you have to understand the distrust that we have amongst each other was thrust upon us. And it was thrust upon us in the different ways that we came to this country. And many of them are proud of the fact that they built a life from scratch. And I respect them for that. But most African Americans came over here under a boat, in the bottom of a boat, against their will. There was no tickets to buy. And then after they got here, even after they got their freedom, the entire government system constrained them and limited their opportunities. And it was all designed to block them. And any laws that may have pertained Korean Americans was a byproduct of the attempt to control African Americans. And so this difference in economic status is easily explained. The resultant jealousy and privilege that occurs between the two cultures is easily explained, but it's not so easily bridged.
Yeah, the difference between choice and chattel. They came by choice, you came by chattel.
But that's just delivery to America. That's not living in America. There are other differences that affect this too.
Well, and the proximity of Koreatown to the incidents surrounding Rodney King and other riots in LA, and that the challenges associated therewith, and the fact that many of the Korean shops were impacted. I can understand some of the distrust and the issues that arose and probably still to some degree continue to exist in those communities.
Well, I have to say, when I arrived and gave a pulpit speech to the KVSA, to someone whose father lost his grocery store, I can understand their disdain.
Well, again, we were talking about reparations and the multiple quote unquote conspiratorial issues that might have led to damages to African Americans, to Native Americans, and I would suggest continue to occur to many other groups, but maybe not to the same government base. And I think that's what you put in your discussion, that this was almost a legislated effort to impact certain groups.
Oh, absolutely. There was a period of time when Asian, particularly Chinese,
Right.
was also the legislative target.
Right.
But most of the laws, and I once again, I want to refer you to the book, the 1619 report.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the laws were designed to control recently freed slave population. And they were just extension of the slave codes. So we've had plenty of experience of this. And the slave codes weren't generated here. We brought them from Great Britain. So we've had plenty of experience in how to control people.
Yep.
And America didn't invent it. They just perfected it.
They perfected it and they continue to deny it.
Well, yes. And when you say they, remember, this is a democracy.
We.
Right.
Say we.
We.
We continue to deny it.
And when we say we mean some of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Denial. More than a river in Egypt.
More than an election.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for another courageous conversation. Be sure to follow us and check back next week for more.